that's considered a long-term investment. Those long-term investments, you don't pay any taxes on until you actually sell them, and you'll pay taxes on the gains, or you can actually deduct the losses on your tax return. So there are cases where having a loser in your portfolio can benefit you, especially if it gets you into a lower tax bracket and allows you to pay less. Now, why is it that ordinary income tax rates are near 40%, whereas our capital gains taxes, most people are going to pay around maybe 10 to 15%. So they're far less. Why is it structured differently? The reason is that the government wants to encourage long-term investing in corporations and things like that for infrastructure growth with corporations, infrastructure growth when it has to do with municipalities and things like that. And having long-term investments in those types of things encourages those types of things. So to encourage that, they use a lower tax rate, and that benefits a lot of people. So the truth is that a lot of people who have money, they tend to have a lot of their savings invested in long-term investments, which will lower their tax obligation every single year. Now, the big conversation that we're having right now is these mega billionaires that are out there. I think we all know this week that we just had 2 mega billionaires engaging in a space race, who can go to space first. And we had Richard Branson hit space first, and then we had Jeff Bezos hit. And while there is a lot of really good that comes from this type of thing, when you develop technology that enables rocket ships to go into space, and did anybody see the space landing? How that rocket just came in and landed perfectly? They're not doing ocean ditching landings anymore. They are literally landing the entire spaceship intact on the ground. It's amazing what's going on. However, when you think about the money that went into these 2 launches, billions and billions of dollars, probably, and I'm not really sure about the tax subsidies that went along with them. But the world is facing a lot of dire situations with climate change, with a lot of people are going to be living in food deserts. A lot of people in urban areas live in food deserts where grocery stores just are not in urban areas because they refuse to do it. The kind of money that was spent on that, literally, with the right mindset, could be spent making the world and society at large a better place. So there's a conversation going on about that. So let's talk a little bit now. Do you have any questions before I go on, ladies? Anything?
Okay. No, I'm glad you brought up the space race thing, because I wanted to probably talk more about that tomorrow morning, but your thoughts on that. It is so true. I mean, I know there are all kind of things that can help us all in the long term, but they don't really put that much attention on, somebody that's feeding people.
Yes, and I was saving that one for tomorrow. I really was.
Yeah, or providing water, or because like you said, it's a desert out there too. So anyway,
yeah,
I'm glad you brought
so
it
what's
up.
really interesting is that back in if we all recall the 60s, when John F. Kennedy said that we were going to go to the moon before the decade was up, and we did it. And a lot of public funding went into all of the technology that was required to launch rockets and the lunar module and the space land, all of the moon lander, all those things. The technology that came from NASA resulted in a huge influx of consumer goods that we take for granted. If we remember back to the 1960s, how many of us remember those little plastic handheld radios? Remember those? They were little plastic radios. They played AM radio. You remember that, DJ?
The little transistor joints. I had
little transistor radios. Well,
I mean, not in the 60s. I wasn't born till 66, you old person.
Old.
You're an older person than me.
Lawyers did not play him like that. What in the world?
But so NASA and the technology that went into building those rockets, they came up with transistors. Transistors were not part of the daily lexicon. It was everything prior to transistors was vacuum tubes, these big energy sucking, heat producing tubes, and creating transistors started the trend to using microtechnology. Now we have circuit boards. There's entire computers that would fit on your thumbnail now because of what's going on. But that was the onset of it. And it created a lot of consumer opportunities. A lot of commercial opportunities came from the technology. So what Bezos has done and what Richard Branson has done and what Elon Musk is doing, it's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful stuff. And hopefully it starts trickling down to people like us to where we can be using that technology. But let's talk about the money instead. So when it comes to taxing, the conversation of taxing the rich, I'm going to try to make this really, really simple for everybody to understand so we all really get why this is an important conversation. I'm going to use the Walton family as an example. Does anybody know, do we all know who? Okay, so that's the heirs. It's not the people who established Walmart. These are the children of Sam Walton who collectively are worth, there's 7 children. They're collectively worth $231.7 billion.
A piece?
To collectively.
Oh.
So between the 7 of them, they're worth $231.7 billion. Damn. Now, they didn't work to earn that money. They inherited it. And I'm not saying they don't deserve it. That's not what I'm saying. However, each one of those heirs is worth between $35 and $55 billion each, which means that money that they've got that's long-term invested in taxed capital gains, if they're earning an effective return of 10% every single year, let's use the person who's worth $55 billion. They will earn $5.5 billion in interest without ever lifting their finger every single year. Now, again, that money is going to be taxed at capital gains rates. Let's call it 25%. But if that money was taxed at 40%, or let's call it 50%, 50% of 5.5 billion is $2.75 billion. That person still gets to keep $2.75 billion. How long do you think it would take to spend $2.75 billion for one person? You couldn't do it in your lifetime. You couldn't do it. It's so much money. It's so much money that you can't even imagine what it is. And that's just for 1 year. So now do that across the spectrum of all of the mega rich that are out there. And over the years, our tax codes, especially over the past 4 years, the last round of tax cuts that happened in 2017, disproportionately benefited the ultra rich. We have a serious problem in this country. Our infrastructure is crumbling. Our energy grid is old and antiquated. We need to retool the way we gather energy and create energy. We need to figure out better ways to take care of our population. And all of those things could easily be addressed by simply addressing our tax code. I am not saying, and nobody is saying, that people don't deserve to make money and don't deserve to earn money. And by putting their money in long-term investments, they're doing the right thing. However, at a certain point, I think Forrest Gump's mom said it the best. You really only need so much money and the rest is for showing off. And, I'm not preaching socialism. I'm preaching social responsibility. That person who is worth $55 billion, who makes $5.5 billion without even lifting a finger throughout the year, if that is taxed at 2.75 or taxed at 50%, they still hang on to not just what they already own at 55 billion, they still get to keep $2.75 billion. It's insane the amount of money that we're talking about. And this conversation goes all the way back to the turn of the century when Teddy Roosevelt was president. Now, I don't know if anybody knows this, but around the turn of the century, we had what they called robber barons. And Teddy Roosevelt he was very, very, very adamant about antitrust, breaking up monopolies, making sure that the people were addressed versus the ultra rich. And a lot of those ultra rich, we're talking about John Rockefeller, Carnegie, Flagler, all those ultra rich back then, their egos were so involved, they all wanted to be the richest. And they were responsible for a lot of social ills. We had children working 40, 50 hours a week in sweatshops and coal mines and different things like that, all to make people very, very rich at the very top. And that's kind of what's happening right now. We have to effectively address the tax code to make sure it's equitable. Now, readdressing the tax code is not going to affect probably 98% of this country. Readdressing the tax code is going to increase the obligations for those who are very, very wealthy already.
Craig, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So we talked about the $5 billion. What about the people that are worth $5 billion? So let me play hood devil's advocate here. What about the regular dudes that's worth about 500?
That's not going to affect them. So that's the conversation that's going on in Congress among our leaders, is where's the delineation going to be? How are we going to tax the ultra rich in a way that's equitable to our society and doesn't increase the gap between the haves and have-nots? So the last I heard, it wasn't going to affect anybody who was worth less than $10 million. And how many millionaires do we know? I mean, I know a few. Actually, my mentor is a very wealthy person, but he earned it. He worked for 30 years and he earned it, and he's a benefactor and he donates a lot of money, and that's wonderful. So thanks for playing devil's advocate, but it's not going to affect everybody. It's only going to affect the very richest in our society. Do you have anything else for me, DJ?
Nah, you know me. I'm always looking out for the
hood rich.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm always looking out for the cookout for the underdog. So.
Well, and that's the American way. We all love a comeback story. We all love the underdog. We all love a success story of people raising themselves up by the bootstraps and making themselves a success. However, let's talk about something else now. A lot of people were very, very upset during the credit crisis of 2008 and 2009. Because our national debt rose quite a bit during that time. However, we were facing an economic meltdown on a global scale. It wasn't just the United States, the entire world was falling apart economically. And a lot of people on the right, of course, would attack President Obama because of the escalating debt. Well, what President Obama did was unprecedented in terms of guiding our economy from the precipice and bringing us back. And after addressing the credit crisis, having a stock market that grew almost 300% in the next several years of his presidency. During the last presidency, when we had our misguided, less than intelligent president in power, our debt went up by $3 trillion during a good economy. And then during the pandemic, we don't even have the actual price tag of that yet, but it went up about $4 trillion in a single year. So what we're facing as a country is we're facing a fiscal disaster that's going to happen, and we're all going to have to pay for it. And the time to start thinking about it is now. The same fiscal disaster that this country is facing is the same kind of disaster our world is facing due to climate change. The longer that we stick our heads in the sand and the longer that we hold back from doing what's right and real and correct, the harder it's going to be to get back on track. I'm done talking. Anybody have anything to say? I don't want to dominate the conversation too much.
I'm going to say this. I don't need the billions, but I wouldn't mind getting up to the millions.
Well, of course, that's what we're all striving for, isn't it? Absolutely we are. So I'm a reasonably successful person. I pay a lot of money in taxes. I don't mind it because I live well. I do well for myself. I have enough money to where I can donate money to my favorite charities. I can donate money to people who need it. I can do the things.
I got a charity for you.
You, right?
I actually have a nonprofit, 501c3 and all.
Yeah. So
I'm just joking.
So we all want to get to the point where we have enough money to live the life that we want. And that's part of what my job is, right? As a financial advisor, my job is to overcome problems. You've got a problem. I've got a solution. You want to grow your money. You want to be responsible with your money. You need help. That's when you talk to somebody like me. So we want everybody to have a financial advisor. We want somebody to have somebody that you absolutely trust with the advice that you get, so that you're always making good decisions.
I have
So
Manny
let
Mo.
me ask one question before you go.
go ahead.
So when it comes to the money, right, and our guest is in the politics, so is it wise to take your money and invest it in your campaign or in your business or what you're doing? Is it wise to take your physical cash and invest it into what you're doing, or is it better to get OPM, other people's money?
I think it's a combination of both. And it really depends on what you're doing. I mean, if you look at the last presidential campaign, a lot of the money that came in for that campaign was donors. A lot of people who were starting off in politics, they use their own money to get things going. And once they're established, then they get other people's money. It's the same thing with my movie company. So for listeners out there, I'm not just a financial advisor. I'm also a principal in a film production company.
You sound like a commercial. I'm sorry.
I
I was thinking the same thing, Shell. I'm not only a client.
This is all my real hair, though. So
is it though? No.
Yes, it is. It is.
Go ahead.
So with our movie, we decided that we were going to invest our own money to make the first movie and do it successfully. And then when we do the next ones, then it'll be a lot easier to gain investors because they'll see the success that we already had. And we put our own skin in the game and things like that. Ultimately, it's a question of what you're trying to do and how you're trying to do it and what your own situation is and your personal philosophy on what you should be doing. I know a lot of people who say you should use other people's money all the time when it comes to making movies. To me, if I did crowdfunding, to me, that would be like the ultimate invitation of every investor to be like Forrest Gump. Run, Forrest! You know, so we didn't want to do that, but we will do it on the next one. DJ, what do you have for me?
Oh, never mind. Well, yeah. Speaking, I want to go back to the I, the R, and the S. Them Manny, Mo, and Jack.
Mm-hmm.
Why are people just now starting to get their stimulus from last year?
You know what? I haven't gotten my income tax return from Illinois from last year.
Me neither. I haven't gotten my income tax.
Checks. They're supposed to be. The last I heard, the stimulus checks were supposed to be going out in the middle to the end of July. So they're on track for what they initially said they were going to do.
No, I'm talking about
August and we don't have it yet, then I would say they're behind.
Wait a minute. Back up. There was another stimulus check that went out?
My wife and I received 2 stimulus checks.
I'm thinking this is the 600 that we were supposed to get last year that I never got.
I don't know what to say about that. I know that the last round of stimulus, it was either $1,200 or $1,400 per qualifying person.
The 1,400, right? I got that one time. But 600 just showed up in my account from the IRS.
Don't
today.
be mad. Celebrate.
No, I ain't mad. I'm just
hot bottles. No.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that one, DJ. I'd have to talk to you more in depth about that. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just trying to figure out why are they so late with these payments to people.
I don't know the answer. I wish I did.
Neither did
That's
they.
weird about the Illinois. I've talked to multiple people that have not gotten their tax returns yet.
Yeah.
Shoot, I was due money from a year before last, never got it.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, I'm going to have to look into that this week.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just Illinois, because Pennsylvania, my wife still hasn't gotten hers yet from 2019.
You know, I think we probably ought to cut some of these government entities a little bit of slack, because those offices that handle this kind of stuff have been closed for a long time, and it's probably going to take them a while to dig out from the backlog.
True.
So, but it doesn't hurt to ask what's going on. I just don't know the answer.
I was just curious of what's exactly. I'm like, wow, I forgot all about this. Damn. And here, I'm not.
That was a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cindy, do you have another question for me? I don't know if my time is running short.
It is, and I don't. I don't.
What do you got,
So-
Shelly Shell? Anything for me?
I got this letter from the IRS that said I have to prove that I'm me.
Hmm.
Is that normal?
And in today's day and age, I would say that it's probably becoming more normal. I would want to make sure that it's not a scam. I mean, there's a lot of really bad people out there who will use the IRS as kind of like their cudgel to get you to comply and have you get scammed. So I would look into it and make sure that is actually true. You can contact the IRS and ask them about that.
Okay.
I would do that. Anything.
Yeah. Don't
Yeah,
give
just
them
call 'em
any
directly.
information
Yo.
till you know.
Yo,
Yeah.
y'all send me something? That wasn't y'all? Oh, all right.
There is scams. I mean, we get spoofed on the internet all the time. I get stuff like your PayPal account's been locked. We need your password for your credit card because otherwise we're going to lock you out. I've gotten calls saying I owed money to the IRS and I needed to send money right away.
How about the one that I get where they say that my vehicle registration has run out? Really? I'm blind, you idiot. Do your research for you scam.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're out there. So it's just common sense. Here's another thing to look at when we're talking about security. This is an interesting thing in scams. When you get emails, look at the HTTP that comes before the www. If it's HTTPS, if there's an S at the end of it, that's a secure transmission.
Yep.
If it doesn't have the S, there's a much higher probability that it could be a scammer, or there could be a virus, or there could be something like that attached to that email. So there will be people out there who don't have the S, and if you know them and trust them, it's fine.
But most government entities always has that S.
But if it's got an S afterwards, that's a secure internet transmission, and it's a lot safer for you to access that. We also know if you get emails or you get links or whatever that you don't know or trust, never click on the link, because that could infect your computer. That could expose your information. And there's no way to completely protect yourself from it, but it's something that you always need to be aware of. We're sharing a lot of our information online now. A lot of our personal information is out there. We want to make sure that we're protecting ourselves.
And on that note, thank you, Craig Engel, for joining us today for the first half hour. We're sad you're not going to be with us for the rest, but we understand work comes and you got to go for it.
Comes first. Yeah. So
God bless you on that.
yeah, thank you. Let me know when you guys want me back for the after dark talks or the morning talks. I'm more than
Yeah,
happy.
that's the second Monday of the month.
Okay.
So
Well,
in a few weeks.
I
And
have a
as
hard
far
time
as the
keeping up
morning,
with it
I
all,
know,
so
I'll
let me
text you.
know.
and as far as the
I'll-
morning goes, Craigie, you're invited anytime, bro. I told you. that.
Literally, you come in, you can just say, send me the link.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Craigie. Did
Yes.
you hear that new name he gave you?
Craigie.
Thank you.
Reggie.
Craigie.
The heck?
Oh, you should
Okay.
hear some of my other nicknames. They're too blue for this program.
Well, thank you.
And Shelly Shell, I still have a bone to pick with you. Still have not reviewed my movie.
I have not. And I thought about it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
All right.
He's
done.
going to do
All
it.
right. Everybody,
Thank you. God
thank you.
bless you. Good luck. Tell Larissa I said hi. We said hi. And we'll talk to you next time. Thank you.
You got it. Talk to y'all later.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Craigie.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So we got 3.5 minutes, and then we are going to we'll have Red King here with us. So excited.
I have not.
It's the PPC Radio Show. Hosted by Cinda Williams and co-hosted by Shelly Williams. Music by Grown Folks Radio. WGFB FM radio.
So are you ready?
How it used to be. Something for everyone. 24/7, 365.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Listen, you only think you know Cinda Williams, co-host of the PPC radio show and the Melanated Morning Show. You've seen her in films with some of the GOATs. You may have even heard her sing her way to the top. You don't have to judge the book by its cover. You can get the book and read it cover to cover. I'm talking about Pink Panty Confessions by Cinda Williams, available in paperback and digital format in all good bookstores. I would probably look.
Just imagine if we all invested in Amazon when it first.
Confessions.
Yeah, just imagine if we all invested in Amazon when it first started. How about that? If we only, you know how many companies, if we only did this, only did that when it first started, we be paid right now. Zoom, and if we'd have invested in Zoom with something like that, we'd have been.
For the health and safety of our guests and team members, we're here for you. That means frequently deep cleaning our stores and wiping down carts and baskets after each use, reserving dedicated shopping hours for our most vulnerable guests, providing masks and gloves to our team members, and offering contactless shopping options through the Target app, like Drive Up and same-day delivery. We are here for you now more than ever, and your health and safety is our highest priority. Learn more at target.com/a-bullseye-view.
I didn't invest
New
in,
Dunkin' Refreshers. Vibrant fruit flavors like strawberry, dragon fruit, and peach passion fruit. B vitamins and energy from green tea. All under 200 calories. Order ahead via the Dunkin' app for a contactless way to order, pay, and pick up in the drive-thru. America runs on Dunkin'. Price and participation may vary. Limited time offer.
So when that whole relationship thing didn't work. And,
Amazon is hiring near you. Earn a competitive wage and start as soon as 7 days. No resume or experience required. Health and safety are a top priority with all of Amazon's roles and sites. Amazon is taking precautions in their buildings to keep people healthy. Go to Amazon.com/apply. That's Amazon.com/apply. Amazon is an equal opportunity employer.
Hey everybody, it's Shelly Show Williams, Philly Oprah, executive producer of Urban Expressions, single on a Saturday night. But I am a business, social media, and media coach. And if you're looking to show up on social media with a purpose, I have a course for you. Have you been struggling as an entrepreneur, trying to figure out how to get people to engage, how to get people to buy, how to get people just to see you on social media? I have just a course for you. Please go to ShellyShowWilliams.com to find out more.
Wait, are you going to put it in can't you put it in the museum? Can't you get it curated and put it in the museum and things like that?
Will they pay me?
WGFB FM radio.
So are you ready?
How it used to be. Something for everyone. 24/7, 365.
Yo, what's good? This is Tracy Lee, and you already know I gets down with the Get Down, man. Grown Folks Radio.
I can't do it unless I can.
Hi, everybody. This is Cinda Williams, and I am the co-host of the Melanated Morning Show and the host of the PPC Radio Show. And you are listening to Grown Folks Radio.
It's the PPC Radio Show. Hosted by Cinda Williams and co-hosted by Shelly Williams.
PPC, 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 yeah. PPC, 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 yeah. Join me so we can grow together. Conversation, get that healing. Let them know what they're missing. Share with your best friend. Tell them come hear this, yeah. Don't you dare miss your blessings. Powerful lessons, true confessions, yeah. PPC, yeah. A power told for you and me. PPC, yeah. A power told for you and me. PPC,
Yo, real quick, y'all. Shelly, I don't know if it's doing it up there where you at, but it's coming down.
It was while we were sitting here talking, it said The thunder was.
And it came all the way down here because I had the mic off. I had the mic off.
Talk to me.
The mic was off. It was boom, boom.
I was like, okay, I'll just be normal. I'll be normal, but that just happened. Mm-hmm.
Wow. No, it's just cool here. It's been the coolest summer I can remember here. Hottest everywhere else. It's crazy. Even in Britain, where our guest is from, who before the show we talked to her and she was like, she gotta go cool off. It is super,
sit by a window.
She and Baz has been sharing with me how hot it is. But our guest today is Rhea King. She is a young lady that actually Baz Stacy introduced me to. He had her on as a guest on his podcast, and she is so lovely, brilliant, smart young lady, and very active in her community. So I cannot wait to bring her on. So let's do it now, Shelly. Let's bring out Rhea King.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just love our new applause. My bad.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks for coming. Have you cooled off a little bit?
A little bit. I've just turned the fan off and I'm regretting it instantly.
Oh my God.
It's a proper heat wave in the UK. We don't get that often.
That's what I was going to say. Is that typical? That's not typical, huh?
No, we say we want a sunny summer every summer. And then the moment it happens, we all say it's too hot.
Yeah, right.
You can't win with us Brits. Yeah.
No, I understand.
No,
that.
I was just
it's the same here. Except
so
for
all those that don't believe in global warming, you still don't believe in it?
Right.
Yeah. Last night we had thunderstorms. Now, have you seen what's happened in Germany, where they've had huge floods and just wiped away whole towns and houses going through? Just awful. And they've never had a flood there, and suddenly a month's rainfall all in one day.
Yeah, I know in China it came down all the rain for a day for a year in one day yesterday, and it just it came into the subway system and drowned people. Yeah, in China it's crazy what's going on all across the world with our weather, but we're not going to talk about climate change too much because we're talking to you today. Although I'm sure that when it comes to infrastructure and stuff like that, that is conversations that you're constantly having being a community leader. So for those people that weren't able to tune into the podcast, and quite a few people did actually, thank you. And so tell us, introduce yourself. Who are you? I know that you're this beautiful young lady that comes from, okay, let's answer this question right quick. So do we still say you're UK when you're not? You're not, are you?
Yeah, we are the UK. We're just not in Europe. So we've exited from Europe.
We were trying to figure that out this morning.
So explain that to me, because I still don't get it. What does that mean?
So we used to be part of the European Union, and that meant that all of the countries in Europe, like Germany, France, ourselves, Portugal, Poland, others, had joined together as a collective to agree the way that they would trade with each other. And the reason for doing that is that it makes it much easier when you're crossing borders to send goods in and out, so imports and exports. And part of those agreements, they also said, let's try and make some universal standards and universal laws that applies to every European citizen. And again, it just makes it much easier to manage because we have such a close working relationship with everybody. And part of that was the free movement of people. So if you're a European citizen, you could go and spend 3 months, 6 months working in France, for example, without having to have an additional visa and have a sponsor and things like that, like the type of things you would probably have if you went to America and elsewhere. So what happened when we left the European Union? So obviously the nation voted, it was a very close result. They voted to leave, and that basically meant we said, we're not going to have a trade agreement with you that's the same as the European Union. We'll have our own separate independent agreements. We'll have our own separate independent laws. And we would basically act on our own and stop the free movement. So if you want to come in here, in theory, you're meant to have a visa. In practice, there's a bit more to it, because I mean, the way it worked with all of the laws, everyone still had their own laws. They basically just created their own versions, so it was all very similar anyway. So not much has changed there. And since we've left, we've actually duplicated a lot of the laws anyway that we had under European law. So, but yeah, it just means now that with certain trade deals that there could be an increased tariff, so things get more expensive, and some places haven't had the same imports coming in, because it's a bit more tricky. But they're still working it out, to be honest. It's been going on for years. They're still trying to figure out how it's going to work.
Okay, thank you. Because we were like trying to figure out what the heck that
Yeah, we were so stuck. We both were sitting there this morning on the morning show like, I don't know. Let's ask Red this afternoon when she comes.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not sure a lot of our politicians know. I think they all get quite confused. But then on top of that, we've got Scotland, Wales, and England, and we've got Northern Ireland. Obviously, there's the Republic of Ireland. But Scotland actually wants to separate from being part of the United Kingdom and doesn't want to be part of Great Britain, mostly because of the European Union thing. They actually still want to be part of Europe. So Scotland basically voted to stay, and everyone else voted to leave. And so Scotland go, well, why are we still part of the UK? Which is a huge, huge thing. So that's going to come back on the political agenda.
Wow.
Interesting.
Wow.
Turbulent time. Yeah.
All the separation is there's a lot of people in the United States that want to separate out. Like Texas wants to be its own thing, doesn't want to be a part of the United States. And there have been, people that have talked very seriously about going to certain states and it just being them, or part of a state that is just them. So we understand.
They messing up things.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it comes about from governments have just sort of stopped listening to people, and that's what happens. There's a lot of frustrated people out there who just think the current system isn't working for them, and so they think, well, we'll try and do a separate system. And in reality, that system will still be led by the very same types of people that ruined the first one. So you're not going to really solve all your problems. Fundamentally, I think we just don't have good quality leaders and good communication, and we keep electing the same people. And I think that's half the challenge. But that's a whole nother topic. I was going to say, I was listening to Craig with his talk about finance. Really interesting. Especially when he talks about tax, because we have a similar problem here where the super rich don't pay as much tax as the rest of us as a percentage. They always find loopholes, and big businesses find loopholes. And so there's the rest of us all paying our fair share. But if you're super, super rich, or you're a big corporation making billions upon billions, you can find a way of getting out of paying your tax. And I think this is what the fundamental point around the taxation system is. It's meant to be fair. It's meant to be something where we all contribute, no matter how wealthy or not we are. We all pay in and we will benefit from that. And so it becomes really frustrating when you hear the same stories, that there are those that can afford it finding every way to just not pay, which is difficult.
It's so strange. It's really interesting how wealthy people get free stuff all the time. I mean, the
more you have, the more you get.
The more you get.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so. I mean, I remember I was never rich, but people thought I was. So I was getting free stuff all the time. You know what I'm saying? And when I really needed free stuff, I was like, good luck.
Yeah.
I think
Tom Cruise had said that once, didn't he? That the more successful and rich he got, the less he had to pay for stuff. And he just said that was just the really weird thing about fame and fortune, is that people want to just do that. And yet actually what you should be doing is paying it forward for those who are in your position.
It's just like most jobs. Just like most jobs, the more you make, the less you do.
Isn't that something? Yes, the more you make, the higher you get, the more you can delegate. You got that? You got that. While I go cash my $1 million check, you got that.
Well, I'll work for you, Shelley.
Hey.
So tell us, because there's like I think probably most people that listen to this show don't always listen to a podcast. So tell us about yourself, your upbringing, what brought you to this lifestyle of community activism. And I really want to get into that because I think it's something we're all trying to do.
Yeah, I think it's something that actually more of us need to do. So yeah, I grew up in a little village. My dad was a special police constable, which is basically a volunteer policeman. Also worked at the local post office as a postman at the time, and then grew up, sort of progressed up to being a manager there. My mum worked in a local sign writing factory. But now she's an assistant preschool teacher, which is quite sweet. So she helps like really tiny little kids at preschool. And then, I went to school in normal sort of village school, mostly focused on music. And then as I went to university, or college, as you guys would call, I started getting more involved in my local community and in a more political way. So actually representing people. So I stood for election to become the president of my hall, so representing just around like 150 people for all of our things to do with housing and things to do with the university. And then from that group, I then was elected to represent all of our first year students for their housing issues, because, you know, rents were just going up, safety was a problem, there was loads of issues around that. So I then represented them, and then I went on and was lucky enough to get elected to become the president of all of the students, so around about 34,000 students at the university, and just basically worked on issues around safety, around education standards. To be honest, it was all sorts. It's like the university is really like a mini universe, like every type of person and challenge under the sun comes under there. And I loved it. You know, I think growing up, I'd always really enjoyed listening to others and just seeing how things were and wanting to help people out. And I think if you're someone who is sort of naturally quite articulate and can understand someone's situation and really can see what situation is, I think you end up finding yourself wanting to get in and help explain things. You know, you've ever been in that situation where you've seen someone trying to get their point across, and maybe they are the underdog, you know, maybe they are someone who's a bit hard done by, but they just can't make themselves heard. Well, actually, if you're in a position where you can understand what they're saying and maybe you know the right people to speak to, then you can speak up for them and help get their point across. So quite enjoyed that. So I ended up getting more and more involved in my community. I ended up moving home during my final year at university. And sadly, my mum wasn't very well. She's actually quite critically ill. Thankfully, she pulled through, so she's all happy and fine. But I'd moved home to look after her. And at that time, I got a job, finished my university degree part-time. And I met someone who was a real champion for women, who really encouraged me to sort of find my political voice even more so than I had done at university. And he was just a real champion for women, you know, really thought we needed more females being represented in politics. And so he coached me a lot and sort of became my mentor. And I then stood for Parliament. So I was lucky enough to get selected, and I stood to become an MP in the general election. Sadly, didn't win that time round. But it was a really good experience and definitely something I'll do again. But yeah, so I did that. Then I met my current boyfriend, fell in love, everything changed as always. So where I thought I might be campaigning or living somewhere else, I ended up buying a house with him. And I thought, well, I'll take some time out of doing the frontline political stuff so I could continue my studies, because I'm currently training to be a lawyer. And then work on my career, and then I'll get back into it. So I'm just keeping things ticking over until I then do it, because quite frankly, standing in an election is a full-time thing. And you know, like what Craig was saying, you know, do you use other people's money or your own money? Well, actually, you definitely use your money when you first start out, and it's very expensive. And when you don't have a lot of it, you really notice how you really don't have a lot of it.
That's why I asked him, was that a good financial thing? Should you invest your money, or should you go for finding other people's money? Because that's a lot of money.
Yeah, backing yourself. I mean, we do have things in the UK. We have really strong unions who have a lot of financial backing, and they generally will help you. And actually, in the area that I stood, the local campaign team were phenomenal. Like, we would go to a meeting, I would deliver a speech, and they'd just pass the bucket round, and people would just fill their money into this bucket. And you're like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like, you didn't even ask, and they would do this, and that would then pay for posters and leaflets. But it still costs you a lot of money because you pay for petrol when you're driving around.
Can you give us a roundabout how much that would cost to back?
Well, I remember on one bucket shake, actually they'd all donated about £2,000 in this bucket, which I was gobsmacked. So it's like $2,500 or so. But then in terms of my own personal cost, I tallied it up. It cost me near about £10,000 when I added the fact at the time I needed to buy like new clothes to go to certain events, because I didn't have anything smart or like the right suits or anything. And train tickets when I went to meetings in London, the petrol for driving around, the cost of printing, a lot of that came out of the campaign, but a lot of it was my time, my phone bills, things like that. Plus working full time, you know, you end up working till like 1 or 2 in the morning every night. You're just tired all the time. It takes a lot out of you. So you have to be prepared. And so next time I will be more prepared.
So when you do it next time, this is a personal question that you can ignore, but do you want to have a family eventually? And if you do, will you wait for a while? How will you manage that being a woman? You know, because we have extra things that we have to think about. It shouldn't be that way. I think both men and women should be that considerate of their offspring. So what do you think about that? Have you thought about it? Talk to your man about it?
Yeah, you know, it's a really good question, because you're right. I think women do have to consider this more than men, actually. So even if you do have a partnership that is incredibly equal, there is always one person who is carrying the baby for 9 months, and that alone is exhausting, and your body can do all sorts of things, and you could be sick the entire time. And so if you're in the middle of a campaign, well, oh gosh, okay, so is that your experience? Was it pretty difficult? Yeah, I know quite a few women who have had that, and it just sounds awful.
It's worth every pain. It's worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at the time you're probably like, oh, this is awful, but yeah, once you get the baby at the end, it's like great. But yeah, you know, it's a question that we I think us ladies always consider. Me and my partner, we've discussed it at length, and it's funny, the more time has gone on, we kept saying, in 5 years time. So when we met, which was 7 years ago, in 5 years. But actually what keeps happening every year, we go, okay, in 5 years. And then we keep saying it and pushing it back. And now I'm 36, and I think the chances of me having a baby are probably quite difficult. And I think...
But possible. Difficult, but possible.
Yeah, that's true.
Possible. You have to say it's possible. People are having babies at 50. Didn't Janet Jackson have a baby at 50?
Didn't Cinda Williams have a baby at 30 something?
35.
Yeah.
My sister just had twins at 38. My mother was 38. My stepmother was 42.
Wow.
Yeah, it's possible, but it's hard. It's not. I mean, I'm not going to play. It's harder on a woman's body when they're older.
Yeah.
You know, it just is, but it's worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of people don't tell you is exactly how hard it is during that time. But you know, I think if we really wanted to do it, we would, and that's something we haven't taken it completely off the table, but it's something it seems to be less and less likely, because, you know, I'm enjoying my career. I think once I'm qualified, I'm then going to want to really do a lot more of that, actually getting my experience up. And then when it comes to running a campaign, like, it just takes all of you, you know, it takes everything in you. And I don't think it would be fair if I've got a young child, I think I would really struggle managing that. That's not to say that I would not do that if I had a child, because actually I do think it's really important for children to see both parents following their dreams and being active and doing all of that. You know, it's you end up being a role model without realizing it. But yeah, so I think it's looking less likely. But then I haven't ruled out.
I don't know. Listen, I'm coming from a person who doesn't have children, and I think that I would have rather have put my career to the side and had children. I wish I would have thought about it. I really do. I would have rather had. I love my career and I love who I was, but your child loves you forever and you have your child forever. And every person who's had a child said it is a love like none other. So I'm pretty sure that it's gonna love me more than the career will. You know what I mean? I'm a worker. I'm a worker. But I mean, not that I can't have them. I just feel like I wish I would have done it. So it's a career is good, but children just do something different.
Nothing like it. I mean, when I got pregnant with Sophia, I was working all the time and gladly put that stuff on the back burner when I had her, without question, because I didn't want a nanny raising my kid. And I didn't work in LA. We didn't have family there. I mean, we had a few that left, but I didn't even know. I think I wrote this in a lyric on one of the songs I wrote for her. I did not know what I was missing until that hole was filled that I didn't know was there. I didn't even know it. And I mean, that is no pressure on you because you know yourself and you know what you want in all of that kind of stuff. So, you know, I think it's a good idea. If a person has any hesitation at all about having children, they shouldn't, because it is hard. It is so much work. You have to, if you're going to be a good parent, you have to put them first. You really do. You have to take care of yourself too, but you can't. The career is second. The career is maybe fourth fourth. You know, because you have your partner, you have your child, your family comes first, and then your career. If you want it all to work.
And there is no instruction manual.
Have a career that's overwhelming. That's why I left mine for a while. I'm trying to get back in and do my thing, but I was glad to do it so I could have this phenomenal relationship with this beautiful, beautiful soul. And today we were on the radio and Sophie called me. I was like, y'all gonna have to hold up.
Like, I gotta just go take this call. She's like, my baby needed something. I had to go see her. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, she will always come first to me. Always. And I mean, obviously, if I was working on a movie, that would have been a little bit more difficult, but I would have I did. She called me while I was in the bed. I'm shooting a scene and I'm supposed to be sleeping in, and my phone was supposed to be ringing, but it really was. It was her. And so I was like, God, it's my daughter. But I didn't. I kept doing the scene. I finished the scene out. And as soon as they called cut, I said, I got cut. I gotta call my daughter, see what's up, you know, because that they mean that much to you. They just mean that much to you. If you're I mean, I have a friend that has a relationship with her daughter is a total opposite. It's terrible. It's very difficult. That happens too, but I didn't see that happening with you, lady. I think your kids, whoever they were, would love you. But whatever you do is. But
that's a good thought process, because I remember, I think in the podcast you talked about how you had to go back and forth.
That's where I wanted to go, Shelly. Thank you.
Your mother and father. You had to go back and forth between your mother and father. Was it daily or something? Like, it's like, here, let's pack her up. Let's
she
go.
said she was a bag. She said she was a bag lady.
Right?
How? Yeah. I so wanted to ask you, how did that arrangement even come about between your parents?
You know, I don't even know, because it was interesting. My dad actually won custody of me and my sister, which was very unusual for back in the 80s for a dad to win custody. And there wasn't anything particularly nasty in the divorce from either side, you know. I think it just came out who could afford the better lawyer, really. But yeah, but they agreed, even though, so my dad always said to me that he wanted to get custody, so he knew that we could never be taken away from him. But he always knew there needed to be both parents. And so I think he just wanted that power in case he needed it, sort of out of a place of fear. And they just agreed that they would then do this sort of every other day thing.
So how long did that last?
Were you dizzy? Did you get dizzy?
Yeah.
How long did that last?
I think it was from primary school all the way up until halfway through secondary. So it must have been about maybe 11 or 12, I think. And I think partly it came about because, I mean, like for me in particular, like I did a lot of after school clubs. So it was always who could pick the child up. And so if they're picking them up, they might as well stay over and stuff as well. So yeah, it lasted for quite a long time. And only as we got a bit older, then it started to be every few days, but it was still pretty much sort of every other weekend.
So how was it once you got to high school? If y'all do have high school, right?
But it was in the same neighborhood though, so you would go to the same high school.
Yeah, so we're saying, so we had just a 2-tier system. So we had a primary school, which was like the lowest school that you'd go to until about 11. And then when you're 11 and above, you go to the secondary school, and then you finish there at 16. So that was so it was halfway through then, I think, we stopped doing the every other day. Yeah, I can't really remember how it was, but it was interesting. I mean, it came from a place of wanting to share everything equally, you know.
So you had a bedroom at both houses?
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, we're looking at it like you're dizzy, but you know how much of a blessing that is to have
really?
2 bedrooms when some people don't even have a room.
Some people don't even have their own right.
You know, you got 2 bedrooms.
And you mentioned 2 Christmases, 2 Thanksgivings, 2 birthdays, everything was doubled up because both parents took care of you. That's a beautiful thing.
That's a good fight. That's a good fight to fight right there. That's it. Where we're going today. We're going to go to mom. I'm going to go to that. What a great fight. What a some people that helped you in your life, helped you juggle.
Yeah.
I found that so interesting when you said that. Wow. Okay. I've never heard of that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize that wasn't usual until I got older, and then you're like, oh, people spend a week here and a week there, or actually live at one house and then just go and see the other half at weekends. But anyway, but you know, I think we always felt quite lucky, and that was always the way we said that, actually, you know, you get to have like 2 Christmases and 2 birthdays. But what I found was actually really, really good eventually, and I've loved this more actually since growing up, is that we now have family Christmases together with everybody. And it really started when my mum was critically ill. She couldn't move out of bed, and we didn't know if she'd even make it to Christmas or many more afterwards. And so we ended up having Christmas dinner over at my house, and Dad came over, living with a partner, and there's my brother, who's my half brother on my mum's side, and we all just had Christmas together because it was the best way that we could all be together whilst Mum was unwell. And it just worked. And it's just almost like that revelation of going, well, why haven't we been doing this all this time? And since then, we've then just been having Christmases together. And the family's bigger, and we've got my cousin Lois and her husband, my auntie and uncle. We've got my sister, and she's met a guy, and she's got a beautiful daughter called Lee. And we come together, and we do it every other year. So one year is the big family Christmas, and then the next year everyone goes off and spends it with their partner's family, and then the next year we all come back. And it's just almost like everything you've ever wanted, where just everybody's in the room together. And because, you know, everything was getting very expensive, we now do a secret Santa. So rather than buying a present for everybody and spending hundreds and hundreds of pounds, we all just spend like £30 on one person, and it's something they want, and it's, you know, you properly do your research. And the gifts aren't the thing of the day. Actually, the whole day is about the family being together. And, you know, I feel so blessed and lucky that throughout all that divorce, actually, both parents made an effort to get along. And even though times were difficult, money was really tight, actually, we've all grown up, and we've all turned out to be well-adjusted individuals. We've got this really close family. You know, my sister and Lois, my cousin Lois, like my best friends. We talk every day, and the family does stuff together. You know, we go for picnics together. We have day trips together. And I remember it's just unheard of. And I was at, we were hosting a barbecue, and my other friends were there whose parents had divorced, and they were so confused because my mum and dad were in the garden together and then sat next to each other and were talking. And they had never seen that because from their upbringing, parents who divorced never spoke to each other. And so every time that, you know, I'm saying I spend every other day at a different family, different parents, that was my normal. That's why I thought everyone did it. But I always thought parents got on. And then you see someone else, and they see what you've got, and they're going, oh, I didn't realize my thing was weird. I didn't think that parents ever got on. You know, you just sort of learn and you grow, and you start to realize exactly what's good and and how blessed you are, really.
Well, on that note, we're going to take our 3.5-minute break because we're going to bring Jenny Graham, who I am sure has a lot to say about everything we've been talking about. And we still have to get into this whole thing of your experience as a woman in community activism and politics in where you are. So we'll get into that now. So 3.5 minutes, please come back. And I give you
It's the PPC Radio Show, hosted by Cinda Williams and co-hosted by Shelly Williams.
Shelly, can you give me the ability to share? Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
WGFB-FM Radio.
So are you ready?
Yeah. How it used to be. Something for everyone. 24/7, 365.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Listen. You only think you know Cinda Williams, co-host of the PPC Radio Show and the Melanated Morning Show. You've seen her in films with some of the GOATs. You may have even heard her sing her way to the top. You don't have to judge the book by its cover. You can get the book and read it cover to cover. I'm talking about Pink Panty Confessions by Cinda Williams, available in paperback and digital format in all good bookstores. I would probably
love. That's so much love right there.
Panty Confessions, the book.
Hey everybody, it is
Yeah, my dad used to say that all the time about my sister whenever we argued. It's like, no, you must always love each other because the two of you have got each other. Make sure you look after.
You already know I gets down with the Get Down, man. Grown Folks Radio all day.
Hi, everybody. This is Cinda Williams, and I am the co-host of the Melanated Morning Show and the host of the PPC Radio Show. And you are listening to Grown Folks Radio. Radio.
Myself, I am the legendary DJ Cool, and if I were you, I would keep my joint locked to GrownFolksRadio.com. They keeping you up on the latest everything out here. Don't forget the name, GrownFolksRadio.com.
All right, welcome back to the PPC Radio.
So I wanted. Oh, I'm sorry. Cinda.
Yes, dear.
I just wanted to share the thing, but I can't find it. Never mind. Shoot.
Okay, before you do the music, why don't you do it? Is that cool?
Yeah, because I got to find it anyway.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, welcome back. We have been fortunate enough to have Rhea with us, Rhea King from the UK, and she has been sharing her story. And I think we've been all over the place. This reminded me more of a Melanated Morning show today. It
really did. It got real political.
We've been talking about quite a few things, which is always a lot of fun to have that kind of openness. So we go where the spirit takes us, as I believe it is. And the spirit has taken us now to Jenny Graham, who is here to sum up what she's heard so far, so we can then continue this conversation with an extra pair of eyes and brain that's super smart. So go for it, Jenny.
All right. Hey, everyone. How's it going? Facebook and the radio. Rhea, thanks for joining us. So, honestly, I will share a few gems, but I'm like, I want to know what your activist work was like, because I'm always curious about what activism looks like the similarities and differences in like other countries. So I'm actually really curious to hear more about that. So I will not be long because, like I said, I'm curious to hear more about your work. Kudos to your parents for being like both of them being mature adults and working together, because that is a very like rare experience to hear. Or sometimes you get one parent who's like, I can work through my own feelings and not have this impact my child, because I think it takes a lot of strength to be able to like be like, this relationship, it doesn't work. This relationship brings up a lot of stuff for me, and I'm willing to put that aside to focus on what's best for our children. And unfortunately, we don't see that too often. I know I was like praying. I was not sure if my parents would ever be able to be in the same room and be cordial, like both of them at the same time be cordial. It's happened. There's like some little undercurrents that I noticed, but so I think that's really cool. And it also, you brought up something I think that's interesting, like when we think about like our childhood and our experiences, and like until we become adults, or until we like talk to other people about like what their experiences were like we just don't know. And it's so interesting, like when you grow up, you just think like, well, this is what everyone else has experienced. And I think that shows up a lot in terms of like any kind of relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, business partnerships and things like that, is like when we have assumptions that people have had the same experiences, or that people feel the same way about the same experiences. We can create a lot of miscommunication, and we can create up a lot of assumptions about people without realizing it. And like communication dynamics really can break down, and we can like not we won't be able to benefit from what might be possible because we're not having conversations about those differences. I always think about, my grandmother talks about certain experiences that she had as a child, and she's like a Black woman growing up in like the 40s, something like that, 30s and stuff. And she didn't realize how much her experiences were not like other people. She's like, well, didn't everybody's parents like work and like buy you nice clothes, or like get you like these certain types of I forget the name of the shoes that she was talking about. But yeah, sometimes we take things for granted about like what privileges that we've had in our lives. And I think on the flip of that, sometimes we assume that people haven't had certain privileges in their lives, because we might hear like, oh, you grew up in this certain area, or you had these certain experiences. And, everyone's an individual person in terms of how they respond to stuff. So I think there's like always an interesting conversation, because I feel like I also related to like the whole like having a more than one bedroom, but my other bedroom is at my grandmom's house, because I'm an only child, and I'm also an only grandchild. So I had a bedroom at my grandmom's house, and like I never thought about that being weird until I got older, and I was like, yo, I had my own, like a full like my bedroom and my bathroom at my grandmom's. Like I never thought about that as being like a unique experience, or how different that was, that like most people don't have that. But where was I going with that? Oh, so also like being an only child, I feel like people are like, oh, that's great. You were spoiled, and like you got everything you wanted. And it's like, being an only child is a catch-22. Like, yeah, as my mom would say, who ironically is also an only child, we would say, like, we're accustomed to a certain standard of living. So versus say that you're spoiled. But, you know, you're the center of attention, but that's for good and for bad. You know, so like when my parents went through a divorce, like I still was the center of the attention, and that was not good attention. That was a lot of painful stuff to deal with, a lot of burden. And like, I didn't have anybody to talk to about what was going on. You know, like when you have siblings, like at least someone else is there. At least when things get really rough, like you have someone else to be there to comfort you, or to talk about their perspectives and things. Like I didn't have any of that. It was just me and finally the dog. But, you know, so, you know, just those different things that like, we can easily make assumptions. So I just think it's so important to have conversations. And the last thing I'll say is, I think it's interesting too that, and like I said, I really want to hear more about like your activism, because, you know, when you are a woman doing this work, like the conversation turned into like motherhood, you know, which I think there were a lot of valid points that were brought up though, you know, because like as women, like we do have to consider these things, like if we want to have children and like how that would impact our careers and stuff. But it's just so interesting that, for me, like just watching and just thinking like, I want to hear about your activism work. Like, I don't know, like, I think there was a good conversation around like making a choice to like, do you put your career first? Do you want to be a mom? Do you put that first? How do you navigate? How do you balance all those things? Because like for me, I don't have children. And part of me not having children has been like, I hadn't found anybody I want to have children with. Personally, I feel like I've found somebody now. But like I'm also older now, you know, so it's interesting to be like in a position of like, do I really want to have children? Because I think for a while I told myself I didn't want to have children, but it was mostly because I didn't feel like I was dating anybody who I'd want to have children with, and I wanted to have a family. I didn't just want to be a single parent. Like I didn't want to be somebody's baby mom, and so like I didn't have children, and I was like okay with that. I was okay with that until I met somebody who like that possibility was there, and like he wants to be a father and be a husband, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, like I do want children. What if I have to like, do I need to freeze my eggs? Like I wasn't even thinking about these things. I stopped thinking about it. So it's opened up all these new doors. But I do just kind of want to say, I think it's interesting that like that becomes a conversation and a focal point. And on that note, I would love to hear about like the activism that you're doing and like how you got into it.
Yeah, I want to hear more about what you have to say about stuff. This sounds great. And you know, it's interesting you say about childhoods and actually everyone's had something different. Don't you find it funny that you don't realize the impact of that childhood until you get into your 30s, maybe late 20s, and suddenly you realize that maybe the reason you're a people pleaser is because of something that happened when you were younger and it was a way of keeping the peace in the family. Or maybe the reason why you have commitment issues or why you're reluctant to get close to someone might be because you see, like, there's all these things that happen. You don't realize your personality is shaped by the events that you couldn't deal with when you were little because you didn't know emotionally how to deal with them. And I find that fascinating. Like, there are things I'm discovering about myself now. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that was because of things in my childhood.
Agreed.
36.
Yeah.
A long time, right?
It's really because it's like those are survival skills.
Like, I want to give
as a child, you're paying attention to you're navigating the space, you're trying to figure out like what will help the people to have as much peace or like to feel as safe as possible. You want yourself to feel safe. And so yeah, we do develop these ways of engaging with people, and honestly, unless we really take the time to reflect on those things, we're just going through life, just living through our survival skills. And like, so like there's like a big difference between survival skills and coping skills. Like once we have an understanding of like, well, where did this behavior pattern, because I'm doing some really deep inner child stuff right now actually, and so I'm seeing these really new nuanced layers to like the ways that I show up, or like my expectations around people, the ways that I feel, the way fear shows up, the ways that I want to be in control of things. And like I was aware of some of this stuff, but I'm going a lot deeper right now, and it's fascinating to see, like, I didn't realize that's where that came from, or that's why I've always believed a certain thing, or this is why I show up like that. And yeah, and those survival skills, like they do what they're supposed to. They help us survive. But we do need to get to a point, if we really want to grow and thrive, we have to get to a point where we start to examine them and then unlearn what's no longer serving us, and like learn new ways of engaging and new ways of like new belief systems even at times too. So agreed.
So DJ Kid Disco, if you have something to say, you have to unmute yourself.
Oh.
unmute yourself, sir. We cannot hear you.
No wonder. I wanted to give a whole nother perspective, though. Something that I'm just sitting here thinking about. Everybody's, and that's great. Everyone, when your parents divorce, who gets this. I'm the product of the single mother. There was no man ever. My father never was around. He left when I was 2 and never came back. So there was nowhere to go. I was the true latchkey kid. And I'm sitting here listening to y'all say how it shapes what, think, and that shaped it as well. And because I think that's why I am the I don't know how you call it, the in the street person that I've always been, because I had no choice. I didn't have any brothers. My sister was just so removed. It was just me in the projects, in the hood, fending for yourself. And I'm talking day to day, just to walk to the store.
I think it's becoming more and more like that, even with 2-parent households.
Yeah.
Because we at least here in the States, I'm not sure how it is there, but we've moved away. Families don't live near each other anymore. So even if you have 2 parents, you still might be a latchkey kid, like I was, because your parents are having to work. My father worked 3 jobs, my mother worked a full-time job and had to take care of the household stuff and all of that. And so, I was the boss typically, and when I was younger, until my brothers grew up and, we grew. But since I was the oldest, not only of me and my brothers and then eventually sisters, but of my cousins, I was the oldest. So that definitely formed who I was. And then when my parents went their separate ways, I became like I was a surrogate father in a way, because my brothers were like not having, they too busy having fun, whatever. So I got these 2 little sisters that I'm having to take care of. And they are very confused. They're calling me mommy. They're calling me daddy. They're calling me everything. You know what I'm saying? So, but what that did for me is it taught me how to be leader. It taught me how to be very organized. Some people get very frustrated with me and my organizational skills because I try to loosen up a little bit, but I'm that way because that's how I had to be. I had, at the time, 5 kids. My father wasn't there, and my mother was, when she came home from a long day's work, went to bed. I had to cook. I had to clean. I had to assign chores. I had to do all this stuff. But because I had all that, I was then able to be very structured in my life, and it has served me well. And I've had to unloosen up some of that stuff because I didn't have a childhood.
Because I was going to say, for the record, you're still the boss. For the record, you're still the boss.
But I didn't have a childhood, so I've always had to kind of carry that thing. And then I always chose men, probably because, again, you do things based on your childhood. I chose men who I had to take care of. So I'm constantly taking care of people because that was my role, because that's what I learned and whatever. And there are the pros and the cons of all of it.
I'm so opposite from you. I'm opposite. I don't want to take care of nobody. No, I run from it. I love the fact that my grandmother was married, but I used to think, why she gotta make all his food? Why she gotta buy all the stuff she wants? Why she gotta serve it? Why she gotta clean? Oh my goodness! It made me go the opposite way that I had. That's what I was doing all these years. Like, I didn't want no parts of taking care of a man. I thought that marriage was taking care of somebody. I thought that's not what, I don't want that life. I don't want it, and I still don't want it to that degree. But it was cute when she was doing it, and she served the food and she cooked it. I just did not like it. So it was a thing in my head that just said, I tell every man when I met him, I was like, I don't cook. I don't clean. I'm not domestic. And I would just, instead of giving you the, hey, let's talk, let's get to know, but that would be the first thing I would say. I don't cook. I don't clean. I'm not domestic. Don't think it's going to be me. No. And it was like, and then people didn't even know I could cook a little bit. They were like, you can cook? Oh, no, I was just lying to y'all. I just wanted to make sure you didn't think I was going to cook for you. Just let me get this up front. I'm not cooking for you.
Did you say a little bit?
just a little bit. I can't cook like a Cinda. I can't cook like I can't go in there and go make greens and macaroni and cheese, but I could go make chicken parmesan or chicken Alfredo, the things I really
That's
like.
all you say is chicken Alfredo.
I love that.
I swear that's the only thing you can cook.
She's saying a little bit, and she's naming the little bit.
I said a little bit.
Questions, like, you know, it's interesting. Like, so it's interesting to hear like how like certain extremes have developed, and I identify with like what was shared too, because like I was like that too, Shelly. Because I remember like when my parents were together, and I saw the shift when my dad stopped appreciating my mom cooking. And like I could tell when my mom's cooking tasted different all of a sudden. 'Cause my mom's a good cook, and like I remember being like, I ain't never cooking for nobody. I literally like I had guy friends that knew me my whole life. They didn't know I could cook. And so I was in my 20s one time, and I made something to eat, and they were like, "You could cook?" I was like, "Yeah, I could always cook. Like, I'm not dealing with you like that though." But it's been an interesting shift for me to recognize, and then like to see with my mom now. She's like remarried, and has a great marriage. He's like a really great guy, and he really appreciates my mom's cooking. And so like they work together. They've taken on these like more like stereotypical gender roles. Wait, they're both happy.
Whoa! What you gotta do to get a meal?
Huh?
A meal?
Yeah, what do you mean?
I'm going back when you say I don't deal with you like that. Like what? They get a meal?
Oh, my homies I grew up with? Yeah, no. But now, like, now I'm selective though. I'm very selective. If I cook for a man, it's because I really care about you, and that is an expression of love. And like, I'm showing up that way, and I want to serve you because I'm choosing that. But for a while, it was hard for me to do that or even want to do that. So I totally identify with that. And then what Cinda shared about the like organization. So it's interesting. Certain ways that we cope with stuff are I'm a very task-oriented coping person, and so same thing for me, like organizing things, structuring things, strategizing and stuff like that to a degree helped me to like release anxiety. It helped me to feel like in control of things, because there were so many things that were so out of control that made me feel like I was in control of stuff. And I had to really practice intentionally like cleaning up and like leaving some things like out of place. Like I had to do that intentionally for a while to get comfortable with like allowing things to be out of place a little bit sometimes, and it's not the end of the world. But then I got to a point too where like organizing stuff so much that actually I realized it's building anxiety. It's actually because I'm not loosening up. I'm not having fun in the ways that I really actually want to have fun. So it's like a catch-22, because like me being that organized has been extremely helpful for me. It has definitely helped me to get a lot done and to be somebody that people can rely on. And at the same time, I see the way that it also hinders me. And I'm gonna finally circle back to Kid Disco. Like what you shared, I think is something important that sometimes people forget. Like the absence of a person, that's a relationship still. You're having a relationship with their absence, right. And we don't think about it from that perspective, because it's like, well, they weren't there, so it doesn't matter. And it's like, but it does matter, because there was a void there. And so then it's like, what does that look like in other areas of life? Am I seeking out people like Cindy, you mentioned, and I've been there before too. Am I seeking out people who are unavailable? Because that's what feels most natural and familiar to me. Am I constantly trying to fill that space with somebody? Am I denying that like I was hurt by that person not being there? Because I'm honestly even dealing with that with my own dad right now, he's been there at times, but he has not been there a lot of times. And now I'm really getting real honest with myself about the impact of like those times of not being there were really painful. And I never gave myself space to feel that stuff or to validate that because it felt like a weakness, and it felt scary, So I think that absence is definitely is still a valid relationship that has an impact on us.
Interesting.
That's interesting. 100%. It is hurt. It hurt, but we're going to get over it. We're going to get forward. And that's it. So let's talk about activism. Let's talk about, I don't know how to segue, but we want to go back to activism.
Exactly. And also you're being a woman doing it, because that's what the podcast was about. That was She Leads is what it was about. Women leading. And so we have about 9 minutes of this. So let's dig in there, girl. Tell us about it.
So, it's a bit of a challenge being a woman, actually, when you're in the public eye or putting your head above the parapet. I think a lot of people seem to have a problem when they meet a woman with an opinion. I don't know why. I think there's lots of history there. But it is fascinating how, you can be in the same position as a man and you can say the same thing and say it first, and either it gets dismissed or belittled, and then the guy says it and everyone thinks he's a genius, and I find that really interesting. But what surprised me the most was how actually things that you thought were quite positive features could be used against you, and actually no matter what you do or how you try to please people, and that's always my problem, is I always want to please people and I want people to like me. That's always my thing. Actually, if they are prejudiced or misogynist or have whatever issue, if they don't want to like you, they're not going to like you. And so I had people who said that they wouldn't vote for me because I was too intelligent, and it's not good to have people who are too intelligent representing them because it makes other people feel bad. And that wasn't just one person. I had that a few times. Like, I can understand the odd person who says something stupid, but whatever. And then I had a group of men. I laugh now. At the time, it was really painful and really difficult to deal with. They didn't want to. Well, it's not they didn't want to vote for me. They said one of the challenges they had was my knee-length skirt was a distraction for them, and it was a distraction for members. And at the time, I remember the outfit because I'd got some feedback on one of these speeches that I'd done, and I wanted to know how well it had gone. And I was dressed with a knee-length skirt as a suit, and the feedback was the distraction of the pencil skirt was a problem because they could see my legs, and my legs were a distraction for these guys. And then another comment was about those same red shoes from another group of people, that basically only prostitutes wear red shoes, and therefore you were clearly a whore who was going to sleep with everybody. I'm like, wow, okay. And I'm like, yeah, but what about my policies and how I delivered the speech? Let's talk about the real stuff. And they're like, yeah, no, that was great. Can't fault that. Okay, well, will you be voting for me? No. Why? And it was just, and then, so that was a challenge. The types of things people throw at you. And I discussed it on the podcast. There was a guy who had said I was all tits and no teeth. And that was quite difficult to swallow because he was just saying this around to other people. And when people don't want to vote for you, or like your opposition, they'll just kind of use that as the thing. And I had just finished unionizing my workplace. So we had a problem in my old job that the government, we were basically created by the central government, and they were looking to shut us down ahead of the time we were meant to be closed. And they were essentially going to breach contracts. And so I got everybody together. Everybody joined the union. I convinced my union to take everybody on board, even though the issue was live already. And they did. They said they'd represent us. I managed to agree over £1 million worth of legal aid for us through our union. And actually once we didn't even have to go to court because they settled and gave us everything we asked for because we presented our arguments well. It was incredibly stressful, emotionally draining, and the pressure of representing these staff where their income was reliant on you winning your arguments. And if you failed, they weren't going to get their money. And some people could afford that it wouldn't hit them. But other people at the end of the spectrum didn't earn a lot and they wouldn't get their money. Anyway, so I won that. And so to then, on the side, I'm campaigning on the side for this election, having just done all this stuff at work. And this guy has the audacity to say that I'm all tits and no teeth because I'm quite top heavy. I was very slim at the time, I had long blonde hair, and I was very smiley. And, that's another thing as well about women in leadership positions. If you are somebody who smiles and who is enthusiastic and enjoys life and feels blessed for the things that the world has offered you, somehow that seems to make you weak. I'm like, no, I can hold my own. I can be convincing in an argument. I can be intelligent, but I can also be friendly and approachable and kind and loving. And you can empower the women, even, and not be threatened by men. You can do all of these wonderful things. But if you have a smile on your face, suddenly, no, you must be weak. I'm like, if there was a guy with a smile on his face, he's charismatic. He's got charisma. He's like the Tom Cruise of a politician. But so it was a really interesting experience because it shocked me. And actually, I was ashamed for a while to say that I felt so taken by. I assumed I was the one who wasn't a feminist. I assumed I must be doing it wrong. So I stopped wearing clothes that were figure hugging and showing my hourglass figure. I gave myself an awful haircut. I stopped putting highlights in my hair. I stopped caring about exercising and eating healthily and just putting on weight. And I thought maybe I just need to be frumpy and ugly, and that's how they'll accept me. And this was the whole thing about being a pleaser. You know, I'm trying to please people who shouldn't be pleased. You know, and it was another woman in the party who approached me. She'd heard some of my talks and seen some videos and things, and she just messaged me and she was like, "I hear you're one of the good ones. Let's have a coffee." And so we got talking, and she is this beautiful, sexy woman who wore red lipstick and red shoes. And I was like, what? And she held her own, and she just came across as so powerful. And I was like, hang on a minute. I thought we're not allowed to do that as women. As feminists, aren't we meant to be like just awful and really, you know, down on ourselves and not appreciate our body? And she basically dragged me out of the hole that I had fallen into. And since then, I'm much better at not apologizing for myself to people who try to criticize me for being female. And actually, I take a lot of pride in the fact I'm articulate and actually am fairly competent and intelligent. And I try to encourage others around me who, you know, I see this a lot. It's a typical female trait where we all sort of are down on ourselves. And if I see some of my friends do that, I go, no. And actually spend a lot of time encouraging other people to stand, because we seem to think that being a community activist is for some sort of elite God-given group of people who are special, and it's not actually. It's just for common people who go, I think something can be done better, so let's do something about it. That's all it is, you know. But yeah, so that's sort of some of my experience.
It's funny that the what you were saying about how you were a pleaser of people, so you let yourself go in certain ways. You stopped expressing your femininity. I can completely relate to that. I mean, it's hard to not express femininity with all this I got, but I definitely know for a fact that I gained weight and I did other things, because not just men. For me, it was more about the women, because women didn't talk to me. This was a dream. What's happening here? The four of us and plus DJ Kid Disco sitting in and talking with a group of women without them snaring at me or being worried about me with their man, who I was never interested in, because I'm pretty much a loyal person. But you're right, and it's hard to say, you know what, I'm gonna be me no matter what, you know, because you're always gonna have somebody that doesn't like you for you. It's just you can't help it. A lot of people, there's always going to be people who don't like you for you, and for whatever reason, maybe you look like their ex, or maybe you look like their mother-in-law, or maybe you know, there's a lot of reasons why. And so to stay strong in who you are, whatever that is. If that's you being a thick, fine woman, that's that. If that's you, you know, being an athlete, that's that. If that's you being over really big and healthy and loving yourself, that's that. It's just about loving yourself where you are, no matter what other people think and say, because they don't. Man, when I'm in early 40s, when I was like super skinny, oh my gosh, my father, who'd been dogging me for years about being fat, and I was like, he's a fool. There's always gonna be somebody that says something about what you're doing. So you know,
don't get me wrong. Wear your skirts to show your hourglass figure. Don't gain weight. Just go ahead and show them. Get that position. What's your ultimate position that you want? What office do you want to hold? What's the ultimate?
So I would love to be a member of parliament, and then I would love to be in the cabinet. So either looking at education or being a home secretary is what I would love. In reality, being realistic, it takes years to get there and a lot of sacrifice, a lot of networking. So I'm not sure that will happen. But I think if I can't be an MP and be successful there, then on the side, actually, you know what, I can still influence the community. I can still influence policy, because there are lots of lobbying organizations. There are lots of companies, that even ones that I work with now, you know, that you can still influence change, because ultimately the goal is to bring around change for the better. it doesn't really matter which position you're in to do it, you know, and you don't even have to be the one to do it. Sometimes you can encourage the right people to just go and do it for you. So but yeah, you know, it's funny as well, like the whole pleasing thing, because don't get me wrong, I'm definitely not over that. I still want people to like me, but now I know where to stop. I might give someone a chance. I might go for coffee with them, try and convince them that maybe what I'm saying is good, but I won't spend a lot of time dwelling on it as much. And I have a lot of good friends around me who keep me in check whenever I start falling down that road where you start forgetting that actually it is okay to have the conviction of your own thoughts. But yeah, you know, the community activism thing is an interesting one. I think as well, a lot of people I know, and I certainly do this myself, I think that if you're involved, you have to be 100% involved, and you have to do everything and achieve everything. And the hardest thing I've done for the past 5 years is not do as much as I was doing before, and to say to myself, you know what, my body needs a break. I'm exhausted, and my career needs some attention because I need to earn some money. I need to complete my degrees, you know, and I wanted to have some time being a daughter and being a friend and being a sister. And whilst, you know, that felt really good to do, and it's been really good to do that, it's been also really awful to not be the one trying to start the petitions or start the campaigns or go on every march that you want to and write your letters to your MPs. I've got something funny downstairs. I've got some leaflets to deliver for my local MP, so I'll do some little things, but you know, it's really difficult not spending time writing blogs on Facebook all the time, or you know, doing a little video update about a latest issue.
There's a season, right? There's a season for everything, right? So maybe this is your season to recoup. Maybe this is your season to take care of yourself, because if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't get out there and do all those things that all those people need. So I hate to start wrapping it up, but we're almost at a quarter till, and we have a music mix coming from DJ Kid Disco, and we could have you on and talk about a million more things, because we just didn't have time
for hours with you guys.
Yeah, we could. So I think we're going to have you back on. We'll have you back on, because I think you have a. What's that?
Can I pop one more thing in there?
Yes.
So Ray, when I'm listening to you, it's so disheartening, infuriating, and disgusting how much those double standards exist, and that because a man is deciding to objectify and sexualize you, even though you're dressed as a professional woman, that somehow is your problem or your responsibility. That's like infuriating to me. But yes, like I recently was having a conversation about like what does my power suit look like, and it was a post I did a long time ago on Instagram, and I had on this like lacy top dress that was like floral and like fitted at the waist and like flew out, and I had like a little denim vest with it, and I was like, this is my power suit, because I feel like so often as women we feel the pressure to like, let me put on a blazer and make myself look like a man so I'll be respected and taken seriously. And I know a lot of times that is like what happens for us to be taken seriously, or for people to recognize the intelligence and the brilliance, because you clearly have brilliance that you're bringing to the table in the work that you're doing. And I can hear that in what you're saying, you know. And so one last little thing is one of the songs, and a line from a song that influenced me having this really shift in my mindset around like, what does my power suit look like, was actually from a Jimi Hendrix song. And it's the line where it was like, if 6 was 9, and he said, run on, Mr. Businessman, you can't dress like me. And it was just a moment of empowerment of like, I can dress how I want to dress and be the feminine, like girly person that I am, because you will get checked if I need to check you, and you will understand how intelligent I am if I need to share that. But like that, like I am not responsible for if you want to objectify me or sexualize me. Like that is not my responsibility. That is your issue, and I won't let it be mine. So
yeah, and for me, that is a subject matter I really want to really flush out and talk about. You know, for men and women. Is something we need to talk about. So Raya, what do you want to tell? Do you want people to reach out to you? Do you have any causes that you're pushing? Let our audience know how they can reach you or how they can help you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, to be honest, everyone can find me on Facebook, find me on Instagram. But my biggest thing I would say is, if you have any interest in bringing some change in your community, no matter how small, no matter how big, do it. Find other like-minded people like you. Find your local community groups, because there's bound to be some organizations already, and use your voice. You know, it's been given to you for a reason, and it is far more powerful and than you probably realize, I'd say, to most people. And actually, if you're thinking it, someone else is probably thinking it. So speak up and have a say, and you most likely won't be alone. So just do it, basically.
Thank you. Jenny, would you like
and wear
to share?
the red shoes if you want to.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So folks, Jenny Graham, life empowerment coach, art therapist. I'm the CEO of Trauma Free University, where we help change agents go from surviving to thriving in all areas of life. I use my unique rapid revelations method, which is a way to tap into your subconscious mindset using my expertise as an art therapist, so that you can really experience empowered healing and emotional freedom. So I will pop our website in the chat. So if you want to check out more about our services and coaching programs, or if you want to follow us on Instagram, I'll pop that in the chats for you below.
Thank you. Thank you. And Rhea, by the way, if you could do that, you can go onto the page and put your whatever information, if you have any. Not everybody does, not necessarily, but if you want people to follow you and support you, and they will.
Yeah, thank you.
Put that in there. Shelly, you got something you want to share?
Yes, tomorrow at City Hall, 12 noon. Queens supporting Queens. I'm getting an award at City Hall tomorrow. Mama Jones from, Jim Jones, Love and Hip Hop is the speaker, and I get a Community Excellence Award. So tomorrow at City Hall, if you're around, City of Dreams Coalition, Simply Monica from Heat 100 Radio, they have said, hey, you come out, you get an award. So thank you to them who thought of not robbery, think of me. Friday is the single save thing, and it's going to be an all-male relationship panel on right here on Grown Folks Radio, 7:00 on this Friday. So yeah, just keep on. Follow me on Instagram, Shelly Williams.
All right, thank you. Tomorrow you can join Kid and I again for the Melanated Morning Show. We're going to get more into some of the conversations that we started here today, and hot topics and whatever we want to talk about, especially on Thursdays. Also, Friday, I am very excited to have my cousin Diane Williams on the podcast. She is a financial advisor and has had a life. When I said, so tell me about your childhood, like I do, Rhea. She goes, well, I was born a poor white child. So she's got a story to tell. She's come a long way. So I'm very excited to have her on the podcast. You can find that on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and many more platforms. So check that out. And I think that's all from me. Kid, you doing something this week?
Nah, you always handle my stuff. Just so that everybody knows. All week long.
Eddie Davis.
Yes.
Maybe he's getting the music together. DJ Kid Disco, what's up, man?
I love that little animation. I know that's what he was, I think.
Dang it all. I was study talking. I didn't realize I was muted.
Okay.
I just want to say all week long, the Grown Folks Radio will be playing tributes to my friend Biz Markie. May he rest in peace.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, Facebook. Thank you, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you're seeing us. Thank you so much for joining us. Please share and keep on pushing it up. We're bringing up our numbers so we can reach more people, because this is a very healthy way to communicate honestly. So thank you for joining us today. But now we're going to do some DJ Kid Disco's music mix that has to do with cheese. Bye.
Bye.
I was like, oh, I think you already cut it off.
So we're supposed to sing now?
It's like,
make the music with your mouth and
Spice, roll the L tight, keep the rhymes right, yo. I just made this motherfucker up last night, and
whoa, I'm the rookie on the Suicide team.
Hey, what happened?
I just
you played the unedited version.
Yeah, I screwed up. Oops.
Okay.
Butter on chrome.
We won't be playing that.
expression. You know, life is all about expression. You only live once and you're not coming back, so express yourself, yeah. Express yourself. You gotta be you and only you, babe. Express yourself and let me be me. Express yourself. Don't tell me what I cannot do, baby. Come on and work your body. Now, you wanna be like Bob. What's going on with no job? And everything Rob got, he got from Robin. And everything she got from my girl who wanna be like Jackie. Broke chains and I think that's whack. Tom and Dick wanna be like Harry. Little do they know he's biting off Barry. Stan was a scam, but Benny's legit. Mercedes coupe, home true with no kid. A businessman with the people for a reason. Not like Tim because it's in this season.
Who we got now? We got the boy, Roxanne Shante and Shelly Thunder.
L-A-D-I-E-S first. We have Lady G. We have Salt and Pepper and Miss Melody.
L-A-D-I-E-S first.
We have Body and Soul, MC Light and Mishi Me.
L-A-D-I-E-S first.
We got Ice Cream Tea. We have JJ Fred and Antoinette.
L-A-D-I-E-S first.
We just like to thank all the ladies out there who are doing something with themselves.
Thank you very much.
Peace from Queen Latifah.
And Mona Love, and thank you very much. Worthy.
See ya.
Wake up, everybody, no more sleeping in bed. No more backward thinking, time for thinking ahead. The world has changed so very much from what it used to be. There's so much hatred, war and poverty. Wake up, all the teachers, time to teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen to what you have to say. They're the ones who's coming up, and the world is in their hands. When you teach the children, teach them the very best you can. The world won't get no better if we just let it be. Na 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 na. The world won't get no better. We gotta change it now, just you and me. Wake up, all the doctors, make the old people well. They're the ones who suffer and who catch all the hair. But they don't have so very long before their judgment day. So won't you make them happy before they pass away?